A few days ago, I stood in front of my team and announced that I was leaving the company, and I was terrified. I wasn't scared because I wasn't sure about my decision. I was absolutely sure. I was terrified because I was afraid of disappointing people. I was afraid of the side comments. I was afraid of the judgment, the awkward conversations, the possibility that someone might say, I knew she couldn't hack it. Or worse, that someone would be happy that I was leaving. What surprised me was that none of those fears turned out to be the real lesson at all. The real lesson was much deeper. For years, I had built my identity around being dependable. I had perfect attendance. I was never late. I was the leader that people could count on in any situation. I was the person who showed up no matter what. I was the person who solved problems. I was the person who carried all of the responsibility. And from the outside, I think everyone assumed that I would just be there for years. What they didn't see was how exhausted I had become. I wasn't just burnt out. My entire team was burnt out. Upper management was burnt out. And people below me were burnt out. The expectations kept growing. The pressure kept growing. The workload kept growing. But the appreciation never seemed to really grow with it. Every day I felt like carrying weight uphill. And what made it harder was that I stopped expressing what I was feeling. Whenever something went wrong, I would put my emotions on a shelf and I would solve the problem. That's what leaders do, right? At least that's what I told myself. My team would come to me with their frustrations, with their struggles, with their problems, and I genuinely cared. I wanted to help. I wanted to support them, and I wanted to make their jobs easier. So I carried as much as I could. Then I'd turn around and hear from upper management that we needed to do more, push harder, produce more, be better. Meanwhile, I still had my own life, my own challenges, my own struggles at home. But I had become everyone's shoulder to cry on while having nobody that I truly felt safe leaning on myself. And eventually, I started to realize something. I wasn't just carrying my own responsibilities, I was carrying everyone's emotional responsibilities too. The day I made the announcement, the room went completely silent. You could literally have heard a pin drop. I remember one of the girls were digging through her bag, and the second I said that I had an announcement to make, she literally froze. Everyone in the room looked up. Everyone was staring at me. My voice immediately changed. I went from feeling confident and authoritative to quiet and timid because suddenly I wasn't delivering information. I was exposing a decision that I knew would affect everyone in the room. And for a moment, all my fears rushed in. But then something unexpected happened. People were kind. They were supportive. People respected my decision. Several people pulled me aside privately and told me they understood. We laughed about old memories, we talked about good times. A lot of people told me they would miss me. And I realized something important. It's the people who genuinely care about you. They can be sad that you're leaving, but they can also feel happy that you're growing at the same time. Both can exist together. Now, not everyone was thrilled. That's just reality. Leadership comes with difficult moments. When you've had to enforce standards, hold people accountable, and push for performance, not everyone is going to love you. I could feel that too. But that's when the real deep lesson actually finally clicked in. I've always cared about how my actions affected other people, and part of me still does. But somewhere along the way, I started confusing that with taking responsibility for their reactions. And those are not quite the same thing. Being compassionate is healthy, but taking responsibility for everyone else's emotional responses to your choices is not. For a long time, I made decisions based on avoiding other people's discomfort. I didn't want to upset people or make anyone feel upset. I didn't want anyone to feel abandoned or hurt. But eventually, I had to ask myself a very difficult question. How much of my own life was I willing to sacrifice in order to keep everyone else comfortable? Because growth is really uncomfortable. Change is uncomfortable. And sometimes the next chapter of your life requires a decision that other people might not like. Not because you're wrong, not because you're selfish, but because your growth changes the relationship. And leaving that job taught me something I wish I had learned years ago. It's that you can be a caring person without carrying responsibility for everyone else's feelings. You can love people and still choose yourself. You can respect people and still leave. You can be grateful and still move on. And the people who truly care about you will understand. And they may miss you and they may be sad, but they'll also be happy to see you grow. If you're facing a difficult conversation this week, maybe this is your reminder. You don't have to make yourself smaller so that everyone else stays comfortable. You don't have to stay stuck to prove that you're loyal. And you don't have to carry responsibility for emotions that were never yours to carry in the first place. Sometimes, the most loving thing that you can do for yourself is to take the next step. Even when your voice shakes, even when the room goes silent, even when you're scared. That's what I learned the day that I finally chose myself.